All right, well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you might be. Welcome to MVP Office Hours on this, the not first Friday of July. Thank you, America. I am Dale Ziegler. I'm based here in Kansas City. I, by day, am a senior business analyst with Seven Summits. Normally, my partners in crime would be Joy Shutters-Helbing from Chicago and Squire Kirshner from Milwaukee, but they are both on some incredibly well-deserved PTO today. So I've got some of my other MVP friends helping me out here. Call you out now, I guess. We got Phil Southern, we got Stu Adil. I see Mark Adcock jumped on. I see Ohad, all of whom I saw on the Slack channel were going to potentially pounce on me during this call. So I'm going to beat you to it. You can't ambush me. Sorry, guys.
Ah,
I appreciate you joining, as do everybody on the call. You can always follow us on Twitter at MVP Office Hours, and then myself, Joy, and Squire, there's our individual handles, and then MVPOfficeHours.info is the master site for not only this call, the US call, but we have a couple of other international calls that we'll talk about here in a minute. Over on the right are all things Salesforce events, webinars, user groups, all the things. Unfortunately, still being in a virtual world, a lot of the events have been postponed or are making their best efforts to do a virtual presence. But the links on the right are always active, and we are going to share the deck out after. So we'll PDF it. You can get access to these links if you aren't already following them. As a local user group leader, I'm going to highly advocate this lower right corner here to be able to attend local groups, function-specific groups like developer groups or marketing or the WIC groups, nonprofit, etc. But for all things local, hit up trailblazercommunitygroups.com, or you can find your local group on the Success Community as well. And also all the webinars and everything on Trailhead. Everything's up to date as well as they are able, so it's a great source for additional stuff. Internationally speaking, so MVPOfficeHours.info can give you more information, but it's not just us here in the US. We also have a call going in EMEA, as well as a call in Portuguese, which is hosted by Carlos Sequeira, who is usually on, I can't toss it to him right now, but for the Portuguese call, he's based
I am.
in,
I
oh,
am.
hey, Carlos, awesome. You wanna pitch it for a minute?
Thanks. Yes, folks, it happened on the last Thursday of the month, and you don't need to speak Portuguese or Spanish or anything like that. I do the translation, and I have had a lot of the MVPs before involved in that, and people really feel included, part of the Ohana when we get other folks in there that don't speak Portuguese. If you have a chance, it happens on the last Thursday of the month. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you for doing that to help extend the reach. I haven't been able to make one yet, but others here in the States who have had nothing but positive reviews on it. It's a great opportunity. So what is MVP Office Hours if this is your first time? Well, like I said, as I kind of joked about at the top, we normally meet on the first and third Friday of the month, but the Independence Day holiday last weekend has pushed us to second and fourth, which is okay because it's a 5 Friday July. So 2 weeks after that, we'll be back on our normal cadence. This is open Q&A, open conversation. MVPs will sometimes ask questions. You don't have to be an MVP to answer the question. We're just hosting this forum to facilitate growth for everybody in any way that we can. You're okay to just sit back and listen as well. This is usually all great information. We just ask that you mute yourself if you're not speaking. Zoom etiquette, as we've all been ingrained in these last several months and years for a lot of us. If you have a question, you can either raise your hand in the chat, you can raise your hand, use that mechanism, or we have the chat as well, which we'll be monitoring. If you do feel comfortable unmuting, go ahead and announce yourself. And also, in terms of being comfortable, we are recording this call. We're going to post it to YouTube later. So first and foremost, if you're not comfortable being recorded, if you're not authorized to be recorded, please hop off now. We'll post to YouTube this evening, and you can catch it then, as well as all the links and everything that we'll share out. But Also with recording, you can share your screen, which is great. It lets us work through sandboxes and all of that, but please make sure that you show us a sandbox. Our last resort is for you to show us your production org with real data, because again, this will be recorded on a public channel in YouTube. So we'd really like to avoid production stuff getting out there. As we're having the conversation, if you think you have a helpful link to share that might answer the question, please put it in the chat. We will throw it up on the screen. We will share it out in the deck later. This is all meant for everybody to come together. So I know I called a lot of you out already, but who did I miss as the other MVPs on the call? I see Mark, I see Carlos, I see Ohad, I see Philip, I see Stu. We got a good crew today, so hopefully no question goes unanswered. So with that, we'll turn it over to the question part. I want to call out email in the group first. So received an email a couple of days ago into the general queue asking about, if you can read this, recently migrated to Lightning. However, one of the users reported there's missing functionality, event invitation email notifications via save and send update. It's working in Classic, not in Lightning, since we did not enable Lightning Sync in the org. It's been announced Lightning Sync will no longer be available soon. Hence, we don't think it's worthwhile to set up for the specific functionality. Are there any recommendations on how we can go about this concern that we are currently lacking in Lightning? And I was going to respond to her if we do have anything, if any suggestions or recommendations. Anyone?
I'm looking.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hold on. Silence doesn't mean no. It just means give me a second.
No worries. So how about this? While you do that, we can move on and then we'll circle back when you have something. And even no answer is an answer, but we can move on to the next piece because dead air is the radio guy's least best friend. Another item that we like to call out is the MVP Office Hours Success Community Group. This is a great place to post your questions and get answers in between calls. And again, trying to leave no question unanswered. Looks like Stu jumped in and helped Marcel, but currently evaluating 2 top vendors for our CLM implementation project. What is CLM? That's my ignorant question.
Hey there, this is Marcel. Can you hear me?
Oh, hey. Yes, we can. Let's do it.
I'm here. CLM, Contract Lifecycle Management. If there is anybody on the call here today that has gone through CLM tools, for example, Congos contracts for Salesforce, or DocuSign CLM, which is the old Spring CM tool that DocuSign purchased. If there's anyone on the call that has worked with any of those 2 vendors, I would love to talk to you offline, because we're currently evaluating both of them. And crickets isn't good, but I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for listening to me here.
I would be willing to bet that somebody has some feedback on it.
Yeah, somebody just wrote if I've considered Apttus. Yes, but we're not going down that road. And Carlos, I'm happy to give you comments about it offline.
Good for you.
Okay, well, if anybody happens to find anything, we've got to find a way. I work in the legal space, and this is a really important tool for us to have. So anyway, thanks for letting me spend some time with the group and talk.
Absolutely, yeah. if anybody does come up with anything, yeah, either reach out to Marcel one-on-one or bring it up here in the group on his post, whatever, because there may be someone else who can benefit from that same information. But again, trying to leave no question unanswered. Even if the answer is no answer, at least we tried.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, who is up next? Anyone? Jasmine, looks like you unmuted.
Yes, absolutely. So I do have a question. So I'm currently building out a community, and this is going to be a private community specifically for members. So they will have to log in. And using the direct message feature that's out of the box with the customer service template, I was wondering if there's any way that when you're starting a direct message, and let me know if I should share my screen.
Oh, yeah. Here, let me stop and then you can, yeah.
Give me 1 sec, I'll just set up. So basically, I want to know if it's at any way possible to somehow filter that search when you're searching for someone to direct message to. Because at the moment, it seems like if a community member is searching for someone to message, it will show all internal staff as well. And we wanted to only filter for community members. And 1 sec, I'll just pull it up right now.
So if I had to guess, maybe we have a chat to help, but oh, we can't see your screen. Yes, that's true.
I'm gonna share it right now. I just wanted to get it set up.
Okay, no worries. If I had to guess, you're using a native person finder, which just says go find users. And it compiles the Salesforce licenses, it compiles the community licenses, it compiles just all active licenses in an effort to be a community. I would imagine it's in the realm of possible to potentially custom develop something that refines that down to community members. As someone who works for a largely community cloud-based consulting company, I should be able to answer that more succinctly, but I can't. But I would imagine that that would be in the realm of possible, and not difficultly. I mean, it would require a small bit of code, but nothing that you'd have to move a mountain for.
And since this is based on a community, like, would that be in Apex? I guess, like, what can I use to like directly change this specific component?
So I don't know that you could do away with the native component.
Or if anyone has any resources, it's kind of hard for me to Google this since it's so specific. But yeah, I'm definitely happy to receive more resources or like something similar that Salesforce might have a help document on for me to replicate.
Right.
But I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen since that was my only question.
So I'm going to take that as an open question that if nobody is able to jump in on, we can go research and circle back.
Yeah. Are you? Yep. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. So let's see. Questions to resolve. Place a native direct. Okay. Daniel, did you have a question?
Hey guys. Google Analytics. We're using a our developers have put together something, and I've told them, Salesforce does something with Google Analytics and they kind of fit together, but I am not, that's all I know. So they're trying to get me to bring back more info back to the team. We service other people's accounts and do their marketing for them. So we need access to a lot of analytics from different accounts. So that's all I know. Usually when I'm looking at the integration, it's usually my analytics for my advertisements, but what about analytics on advertisements I run for my customers? But yeah, I'm just looking to get in touch with a SME that can just chat with sometime.
Anyone? Google Analytics?
Sounds like even though you have so many MVPs here today, all the questions are very fringy.
Yeah.
Dog days of summer. Nobody wants to speak up.
Can you reiterate that? So Google Analytics in regards to what feature again? I'm sorry that I got confused on that.
AdWords. If we run advertisements and we run the marketing for other companies, and so the reporting and the analytics back that we can gather based on each one of those, I'm not the guy who sets it up. I don't know how it works, but each one of those ads, how many clicks, how many, how the analytics of that ad comes back, but we do it across multiple accounts for our customers. We set it up and run it for them. And as I understand it, it's, they're citing that to do this and to not have to manually go back and get each one through API calls or changing our account names, it's somewhere upwards of $150,000 to get Google Analytics to use us as a marketer. Well, I know they've got an integration with Salesforce, and I'm guessing that that's just a one-to-one for my analytics of my ads for my company. So I don't know. I'm just looking for more information on that because our company sets that up for other customers, but they've never brought that into Salesforce yet.
Yeah, and I guess then I would ask a bunch of business analyst questions, and has nothing to do with technology, because storing a lot of data in Salesforce is a costly question. And so I would actually say, what's the business value? If you did a cost analysis versus value analysis on that, what is it that your business group is going to gain by having any of that data in Salesforce versus storing it offsite and just referring to it via a analytics tool like Tableau or Einstein Analytics? Because you can refer to that data via a business analytics tool. You don't need to store it inside of Salesforce and use up all of that space. I need to know more about that. What is the business case for actually moving that data at all?
It's more about not moving data, but getting access to the reports that are there via linking them to accounts in Salesforce. Now I've got this account set up so that if I go to that account, I can reach out and view that report based on this account's information, then switch over to be this account now and view that report. So we want to view it and leave the data there.
Okay.
But
so kind of a URL hacky sort of thing.
Yeah,
where you want to put a variable, maybe you have a link that lives on the account with a variable that says, go to this specific place in Google Analytics, and I'll give you a key that says what this account is.
That's how I understand it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
I think the thing that kind of comes up for me from that perspective is that's probably doable. The biggest thing is it's probably going to also have, like, you could do that with a formula field. The catch is that you're also missing that kind of Google authentication piece there. So they're probably going to get prompted to pick which ID they're up under or log in again once they get to it. But they could just go from that account to the place where they've got some information. The other thing that potentially, you know, if you're looking at certain kinds of information, like you just want to get some aggregate details of the campaigns on Google Analytics or something like that. I've not seen it done with Google, but I've seen it done with other stuff where they pulled some kinds of information like that in from Adobe Experience Manager's piece. And they did it by kind of like making an API call out that would call out to the API. And it looks like Google Analytics has a reporting API that could pull certain aggregate information. So you could potentially use something like a scheduled batch Apex or something like that that would call out, use the reporting API and feed it into kind of a summary object to give you some aggregate information there in your Salesforce as kind of like a higher end sort of integration on, like, you had this campaign, here's how many clicks, here's how many this, here's how many that for a particular customer, and get kind of that aggregate information. But you know, I've not worked with how to do that, so I can't tell you how in depth that would be, but I can see that, you know, the two things that I could see are, like, one, like Stu was mentioning, the going the URL hack route, or two, at the higher end, more in depth, is making an API call out and pulling in some of that aggregate information so you can review it in summary that way.
Okay. And are you willing to spend some time talking to my dev team, I guess, is the next question. I need to find a subject matter expert who has worked with this before. So
I haven't actually done it myself before. I worked at a place where they had done it with that again, but they also controlled their Adobe Experience Manager setup, and they also control their Salesforce implementation. So it was a call out to another tool. So they were doing it on their own to facilitate their salespeople. And I saw it in work where they did that, but I wasn't actually involved with it myself. So I don't know how they plug that together.
Okay.
Hey, Daniel, have Google Analytics has a Salesforce integration. Have y'all looked at that through their Marketing 360 piece?
I've looked at it and I'm ready to install it. I'm just looking for a subject matter expert to help me get through I don't know that I can answer all the questions for
through the painful parts.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I haven't worked with it, but from an integration standpoint, I mean, it looks like, you know, through Google Analytics, you'll be able to push things through to your Salesforce environment. But, you know, to your comment about other customers, if they have their own GA account, then you still have to point that somewhere, right? It still has to authenticate through whatever authorization that it has to their Salesforce environment or your Salesforce environment or whatever that is. So it looks like they do have something, but it's going to be pretty centric to Google Analytics. From what I can tell scrolling through it, Salesforce is just a landing spot, right? So they're going to need some standard fields access and then a few custom fields for you to dump in there. But everything on the setup side looks like it's Google Analytics.
Stu, sorry, I didn't see your chat link with this.
Yeah, and that's on the GA connector site, which I think was what was just being referred to.
Okay.
There, but that talks about how to set up a link from a record directly to Google Analytics. If a dev wanted to read through that, it gets a little bit higher than my pay scale.
I think I've seen this. And there's 3 fields you have to put on the record. But yeah, I was looking this over, and it was above my pay scale too. So yeah, I was looking for a SME, or maybe I'll just refer this documentation over to my dev team. And
yeah, I'm scrolling through it now. I mean, you know, full transparency, I am a Salesforce consultant / developer / you know, whatever. So I've done plenty of integrations, but everything in this document is really centric to Google Analytics, right? So Google Analytics is going to need certain fields. You have to make sure there's custom tracking fields on your forms with the JavaScript pieces in that. So all of that is outside of Salesforce. if you create, creating the data set inside Google Analytics, creating your properties and all of that's going to happen in Google Analytics. Really, the only thing I'm seeing is just, you have to authorize, I'm assuming through OAuth, through Salesforce Sales Cloud, and then make sure you have some custom fields in there. Literally the Salesforce side of this is just, this is where it's going to end up, but everything about this setup's going to be on the Google Analytics side, or your forms, or wherever your web assets are out there, right? Those are the pieces that are going to have to be touched.
Good. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. All right, Christy, go for it.
Thanks. Hopefully I have the easiest question of the day so far. So for the first time ever yesterday, I was looking up an idea and I'm like, oh, look, it seems to be very simple code to have a Visualforce page that just has a link, because the goal was to embed an outside website into a Salesforce page so that the users didn't have to go out. And it was the tracking freight website. It worked great. But then I tried it with some kind of internal, it's a software program that, let's say, is not available to everybody unless you're part of Google Connect, and it's called Field Progress Tool. It's a really old program, but it's a white page. And so because I've never done this Visualforce thing before, and it worked really well with the tracking site, that I was like, well, I have no idea why. Is it because it's HTTP versus HTTPS or something else?
So if nobody else says anything, I'm going to probably throw out the ignorant answer of, I would be willing to bet it has something to do with any kind of cross-site authentication.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can muddle my way through an answer, but is it any cross-site scripting or cross-site resource experts on the call that want to speak up?
Looking for a needle in a haystack that is exactly 8 gauge.
Right. And the reason I'm gonna muddle through this is that I've run into this before, but it's been years. There is, gosh, what was this, 5-6 years ago? From a security standpoint, Salesforce really started to lock down cross-site scripting, cross-site references, basically iframing source resources and web pages into Visualforce inside of Salesforce, right? And I'm trying to remember. There's some security settings and setup, and I don't think it is as simple as saying, this is a trusted site, so we can access it, or if it was completely locked down. That's something that.
Okay, so if I'm
There's
understanding
the CSP
correctly,
settings.
It's the what?
The CSP settings. That's where you can basically do a CORS whitelist. So CSP settings might be, because I've done stuff before where I had to pull pages and they didn't like, the JavaScript library or other stuff like that. So CSP trusted sites, sometimes putting that into the trusted sites here will allow it to leverage images and other stuff that are stored on another site.
Right, and the source site has to allow it. That as soon as you said that, it reminded me.
so I read something about that. What does that mean?
Well, it's a two-ended approach, right? So, what's happened is in the wild west of Salesforce, 5+ years ago, you could do this, right? You could iframe and pull in a Google page or a page from anywhere and iframe it into an Apex iframe it into Visualforce inside of Salesforce Classic, and it's fine. Well, the problem with that is you're basically pulling in all of that content, any kind of scripting, whether it's valid scripting or harmful, malicious scripting, inside of your Salesforce instance that you've authenticated into, right? So from a security standpoint, that's where the red flags kind of came from. Hey, this has potential harm. So not only did Salesforce do things to kind of lock that down to say, hey, you have to tell us that what you're pulling in is the content that you're pulling in is a trusted site. But the source website as well has to allow it. They have to allow other places to, pull in and iframe those pieces in.
So hypothetically, because it's a company-owned software program, that I would have to reach out to whoever deals with the code of that program and have them say allow, and they would probably hopefully know, because I know Salesforce, but other software programs really not so much.
Yeah, well, and I can say that if I, from the outside looking in, I would be very hesitant to grant that request, right? I mean, it's if it is locked down and they're not allowing it, it's not in from my purview, it's not a simple request of I need to turn something on. It's a hey, what are you trying to do with our content, right? Because that's where the boom and growth of APIs have happened in the past 5 years, is because hey, if you need data from us, if you need stuff from us, go through a trusted API, right? Like get the data that way, and then once you have the data, you can create all the content you want. So if you do that here, if you do the trusted site, you can try it, but you may still get a white page. If you were to go into, if you're doing it in Chrome and you go into the developer tools and you go to the JavaScript console, it'll actually error out saying whether, Dale, you got your screen up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want the Chrome tools?
Yeah, Chrome developer tools. Yep. And then the second tab over would be console. Yeah, so this is the JavaScript console. So anytime an error would happen, or excuse me, the developer console which shows JavaScript errors. If you were to put the site in here and then do what you're talking about with Visualforce and iframing, and it still gave you a white page, if you came here and it was still CORS restricted, the source content's not going to let you view it, it would have a big error message here saying that.
Okay.
So that there's a way to know whether it's being blocked or not.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for that.
And for
I
example,
never heard about CSP.
Where I did this elsewhere, and I did this in a community where we were pulling some stuff in and leveraging some libraries of CSS and other stuff elsewhere. What has to happen on the other system varies from system to system. So in that case, they had to actually make some firewall adjustments to how they, referenced it, because part of the problem was they had the firewall restrictions so that it couldn't go out to, talking to other places, and because it was effectively getting iframed in, it was behaving differently than if it was otherwise. So they had to make some firewall adjustments to allow it to actually show the content on the page in that other system.
Got it. Okay. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, that gives me enough to, chew on and go play with. Thank you.
So when Philip gave the analogy of the wild, wild west of being able to embed any site into iframes and scripting, some malicious whatever, did anybody else's head go back to Napster 20 years ago when it was the wild, wild west of all the MP3s you could ever possibly want? And yeah, your computer gets a virus. So what? I got all the free music. And then Apple came in with their music store and said you have to pay for it, but it was safe. Did anybody else's head go there, or was that just me?
Just you must be.
You've just aged yourself.
I kind of don't care. I turned 40 this year, and I'm going to own it. So I kind of don't care.
I'm older than that, but I did not do any of that.
You're just a youngin'. That was like in the day when it was easy just to reformat your hard drive and start over, load the operating system and just start over, and I could do it in a couple hours, no problem.
In a series of 26 3.5-inch floppy disks.
There you go.
Wow,
I'm with you, Dale.
You're young.
Thank
Dale.
you.
5 1/4 discs even.
Oh, very nice. Going vintage.
You're talking about Windows 3.11, 311.
That's right.
That's right. The
All right,
best
who's still on
Windows
some of
there
those
ever was.
disks? Because I still have some floppy disks up in my cupboard just because it has data.
I
Whoa.
Dale, I'm ready to answer the first question now. Sorry, it only took 40 minutes for me
I'd rather just focus on archaic forms of data storage.
Tablets, okay. Stone
Uh,
tablets, I mean.
Right. Not tablet 2.0. All right, what you got?
If you go to that link that I sent you, I'll have you go back in time.
The Salesforce retirement or Outlook retirement.
So the link that I put in chat, I don't know who I'm answering this for, but indeed in winter not winter. Well, this is all going to happen in winter 21, to be honest. There is going to be changes to the retirement of what is it? The regular Salesforce for Outlook. If you scroll down in here, and we've had this question come up a few times, but now this document helps us. There's 3 links here. I'm going to ask you to go to the third of the 3 links that you see.
This one?
Compare features, yeah. Let me go to that one. Awesome, in a new tab.
I know how to right-click my way through life.
I love you. You're my favorite friend. And then I'll have you scroll down here. So this document is one of 3 on that last page, and this is a comparison of features. They're all a comparison. This one just happens to talk about features. And that first one, it's talking about Salesforce for Outlook versus Einstein Activity Capture. And so these are going to be your 2 options going forward post winter 21. And when it talks about the features, it'll say, can you get the latest product updates? Sure, you're going to be able to get product updates. Second one, add Outlook emails and events to Salesforce. Salesforce for Outlook available with limitations. I don't like the word limitations. For the Einstein Activity Capture available with both products. Go ahead and scroll down a little bit. Then it talks about customizing the Salesforce experience, available with limitations versus available with the Outlook integration. And now we get to things that are not available on one and available on the other. So drafting Outlook emails, not available on one, available on the other, so on and so on. The select sync directions is available always on one, but if you look at the Einstein Activity Capture, it does not sync from Salesforce to Outlook. So when you go to make decisions of what do I choose as an organization, do I go to the Salesforce for Outlook or do I go to the Einstein Activity Capture? A lot of it is based on what features are available, and these will change, I shouldn't say will change, forward-looking statement, may change by the time that winter 21 comes out. But for right now, there are some features that are available in one product and not available in the other. So you really need to go back to your business managers and say, what features do you want? And I'll tell you what features you'll get based on the product choices that you make. I talked a lot right there, but I'm going to shut up now.
Besides the features, it also consider, like a large company that I work for, the amount of data, if you're doing the one that it actually creates real records versus the mirage of Einstein where they're not really there. That's one of the reasons we went with Einstein, because otherwise there'd be like a bazillion activity records.
True.
Hey guys, this is
Consideration
Marcel,
when you talk about a large organization, and even just an organization that really relies on Salesforce heavily for emails and tracking the Einstein activity, you do get the benefit of the data is not stored in Salesforce. So, you know, for a lot of our customers, that's been a big consideration.
I don't know that this answered the question. But it does give more background to say this is something not to take lightly. And there's a lot of information out here on the help site to dive in and make a matrix that your organization can use to make the right decision.
Right, absolutely. No, this was the question that came in through email at the beginning, and she wasn't able to join. But when we get the call recorded to YouTube, I'll send her the link, have her come up to whatever timestamp it was, and then send her the links as well. I think it's probably going to be a huge step forward towards what she needs to do. So that's perfect. Thank you, Stu. All righty. Who else?
I'll go if nobody's got a question.
Go for it.
Awesome. Thanks everyone again. Happy Friday. This is more just a validation, I think, of a process that I came up with. Make sure it's a decent best practice, and I haven't thought of something else. I've got a client that they do sort of like recurring revenue, and they'll sort of say its start date is this date. It could be mid-month, it could be partway through the month, and then they have an end date. It could be a couple of months out, and they want to forecast the values in particular per month. So I did a process where they sort of enter that start end date and then an amount field, like a new amount. And then when they sort of save that record on the opportunity, and this would be for any stage beyond the first stage kind of thing, it goes off and kicks off a flow that will then take the product and create a product in the background and make that scheduled, sort of divide the amount by the X number of days that was in there. And it seems to be working fine. Then you sort of see a product with a schedule, with all the days divided up equally. And the forecasting seems to work, but I don't know, Salesforce forecasting is a little bit kludgy. Sometimes it takes a bit of time before it refreshes properly, but it does seem to break it up into the forecast. I'm just wondering, is that a crazy way to do this, or is this okay? Has anybody ever heard of that? Silence.
Our certified technical architect that helped us set it up, I work at a logistics company, and of course that has recurring revenue. And so did the same thing where a flow populated it, for each month over the next year.
Each month. So it broke it up by month instead of day, but I think the same idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did it work okay? And they kept it in production? And
yeah, it's working great because the fixed revenue opportunity where you're just going to get a one-time pop, or let's say one truckload, then you actually were having the rep go in and fill in, oh, I'm going to get this in May, I'm going to get this in November.
Yeah, too many opportunities they had to create and sort of replicate, and it was a pain, right? So
but
that's the idea to avoid it.
The recurring was nice because it's easy, it does it for you, divides it out at the end,
Yeah.
But then the fixed was the weird one. But yeah, so Nate Schilling built that flow.
Good. Awesome. So that's one plus, I guess. If it worked elsewhere, I'm happy enough. Thank you. Appreciate that, Christy.
Probably the only thing that you need to consider with the flow route, of course, is just any limitations in terms of how much data you're querying and playing with. Monthly, obviously, might have anywhere for like maybe 1/30th of the data of daily, but might also be a non-issue. It's just a consideration.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So far, we haven't run into any issues. They've been running it for a couple of months, but great. Okay, that's good. Do I have time to ask another quick second one?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I've always used Web to Lead, the old process, right? Where you just put a form on a website, and this client said, we're getting too much spam. Let's use the reCAPTCHA. So I've tried to create the keys. I've been working with the developer on their side to sort of get that site key pair going. But for the life of me, it seems to post and no leads go anywhere. Does anybody had issues with this reCAPTCHA Web to Lead? I know there's a bit of steps in Google to sort of generate that key and stuff, but I can't seem to get it to work in Salesforce. Has people had success with that?
I've never worked with reCAPTCHA. I'm just going to say, when you say old Web to Lead, I'm going to say tried and true, okay? Because it works. And now I'm going to go on mute.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like it. It's despite how old it is, and it's been there since my beginning, 2004, it works great. But reCAPTCHA just sort of throws a wrench. So has anybody been able to do that successfully? Because I might write a ticket to Salesforce to kind of say, I don't think this works.
Specifically on Web to Lead?
Yes.
I had the same, this is Marty, I had the same problem a couple of weeks ago. Did not resolve it.
Okay. So I'll post a ticket, and if I get an answer and something I can share to the group, I'll do so.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks, everyone. That's good for me.
So posting it with Salesforce? or with
Post.
reCAPTCHA?
No, it's like a form post into Salesforce, just like normal.
No,
where you
sorry,
provide-
the question. I mean, I'm sorry, or the issue.
Oh.
I'm asking a leading question here. Are you going to post the issue on Salesforce's side, or is it a reCAPTCHA issue?
No, I think it's a Salesforce thing. I'm going to use the client, go through their web support channels and see if I can get an answer on that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep. So like I said, it's a leading question, but for those who have never had the opportunity to report an issue, known issues with Salesforce, very easy to find. And as you dive into them, because this is when my internet decides to slow down, you can indicate this issue affects me. You can indicate what server pod you're on. It's great traceability back and great visibility to those issues. So for those who have never worked with that before, it's a very, very, very easily accessible place to move the ball forward with Salesforce.
Wouldn't they do that if they find that it's an issue on their end and then it sort of track it that way, or is that initiated by me?
It depends. I think I mean, a lot of it comes down to who spotted it first.
Yeah,
The question is just basically, search first of all if the issue that you're searching for is a known
Right.
issue,
Right.
and report it.
Mhm.
That's kind of. But Bruno, let me ask you a question, and I may have missed some of what you said. But what exactly is the issue you experienced, right? Because I assume you went through the instructions. You
Yeah.
went and registered your domain on Google, and got the reCAPTCHA key and all that, and put it in the
yeah.
web to lead.
I didn't, but the web guy did. And, sometimes he gave it to me and I said, nope, that can't be right because it's not accepting underscores. But then he comes
Mhm.
back with the site key and the secret. I eventually get it in. It looks like it's properly set up on the web to lead page. Even if I use the debug option, it looks
Mhm.
fine. There's nothing that looks out of the ordinary. But when you post, it just says thank you. Like it returns you to the thank you page. Everything posted good, but Salesforce, it's not there. And mind you, I didn't run any debug logs, but I just figured I can't get this thing to work. And let's just get rid of it right now so it works. Let them get some spam, and I'm going to deal with it with Salesforce. But I just thought I'd ask everybody here. So this has been good.
So I will say this: this is one of the things that you'd kind of have to look together. It's a little hard, and if you want to show that, maybe we can try and take a quick stab at it. But
Sure.
the thing to understand about Web to Leads, obviously, is it's a form that's hosted on your website or somewhere
Yep.
outside of Salesforce, right?
Yeah.
And so the form submission is really what gets it into Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that happens on your site before the form gets submitted to the endpoint that Salesforce provided to you could be on your site and could be debugged by your web developer.
Right.
So that's kind of the first thing to try and understand what happens. Is the form actually been submitted or not?
Well, I think so because like I'm familiar with WebSpeak too, right? So
Mhm.
they post, reCAPTCHA is a Google thing, right?
Yep.
On the domain, but then when it posts to Salesforce, if it doesn't come back to that thank you page where it says thank you, that's
Mhm.
Salesforce redirecting them, right? So it seems like Salesforce, if it didn't post, it would just sort of time out or some error, right? But the fact that it comes back to the thank you sort of tells me that Salesforce is happy, but something in between was not happy,
Let me just take a look at something because I did do a web to case implementation recently, and I just want to see something real quick on the code before I say something.
You're not alone in this. There are hundreds of folks in the Answers community that have had problems with reCAPTCHA, and I'm just kind of browsing through them, and a lot of them say it's because of an error on the website, error for website owner, invalid domain for site key.
Exactly.
And they're seeing that on the web when they do logging on the website.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a reCAPTCHA error.
The other thing you can try and do is you can also try to set debug log for your running user.
Yeah, I did that.
May or may not help.
Oh, sorry,
See
debug
what's
logs
happening.
on Salesforce, right? For the user, right? Yeah, I guess under the web to lead, right? Who would that be under though?
It's your what is it called? The default user.
Yeah, the user that's assigned to run web to lead.
Exactly. I'm just trying to find where that.
Yeah. Okay. I could post code if that's easier. I'm looking at the form. I've removed any type of customer stuff. If you think that's easy, but
yeah, if you want to share your screen and just show what.
Sure. Am I able to do that? Let's see.
Yeah, you should be able to
share screen. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so it's, do you see it?
Yep.
Okay.
So here's your action, here's your post, here's your captcha settings.
Yeah, I just replaced the website with this triple
Okay.
X. That's all. Other than that, it's one custom field in here. That's all.
And when
that
you
is.
remove the captcha, it works, you're saying?
Correct, and which would mean, you know, removing this, and then the script up here in the
Yep.
JavaScript section. Yeah. Yeah, it's bizarre. But again, I don't want to take up too much time on this, the call. There's only 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
I can deal with Salesforce, but just thought I'd throw it out there. So it sounds like it's a Google thing, perhaps.
It sounds like it's something with the captcha more than anything else.
Mhm.
I'd love to see an error message.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
actual, because where the error message is coming from will tell us where the problem exists.
Right. Well,
But
what
you're
I
not
did ask.
getting any error, right? That's what it is.
No, but what I asked is the developer to create a hidden page that can't be navigated to on the site and put the reCAPTCHA form back there. This is what you're seeing here. And then I'll just flip that switch in Salesforce, the checkbox to say reCAPTCHA when I need to test it. And then I'll do a debug log and see if I can get something out of that as well. That way we don't affect the actual users on the website. Yeah. Oh, this is all good advice. Thanks, everyone. Much appreciated.
No problem.
Absolutely.
I mean, the other option obviously is, in case you haven't, check your console log in your browser when you click the submit and see what you can see about what's happening.
Oh, I never thought of that.
So
Okay.
F12 if you're on Chrome, opens developer tools, look at the console and try to see what happens. You might actually be getting the error right there.
Okay, that's a good point. All right, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
no problem.
it.
This might be the first time on a call that we've ever opened or talked about the Chrome Dev Console more than once. It's a record.
Woohoo!
I love it. I love
Let's
it.
do it a third time.
You can blame me.
Oh, Phil, we always do.
Anyone have questions on LWCs? It's a guaranteed way to spend time in the dev tools.
Ah, there you go.
Yes.
Can I just mention the Chrome DevTools one more time?
Yes.
Without anything to say about it, just mentioning it. So now we have a third time.
I mean, it's all triggering royalties to somebody. So yeah, you do you. I'm not paying the royalties.
As long as it's not me.
Not my checkbook. All right. Well, if nobody else has any other questions, we're coming up at 6 till, and I do need to jump to, clients. Woo, on a Friday afternoon. Thank you to all the MVPs who jumped on. Thank you for everybody for all the questions. And this is always really, really good dialogue. And I'm always happy when somebody walks away having benefited. And so that's always great. Also just want to say again, in these really weird times, I hope everybody is doing well. I know we're all trying to manage our own lives and in the new normal, not normal, whatever you want to call it. But if it's worth anything, I will absolutely hear and listen to anybody who needs to just have someone to talk to. And that's what a lot of us are also here for, just in general. Drop the work stuff, drop the Salesforce stuff. We're all humans here to help each other. So I hope everyone's doing well. And if you're not doing well, I hope there are avenues for you to help get well, myself included. So thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend. And we will be back on this in 2 weeks. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Dale.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.